Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to the Keto Answers podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anthony Gustin. This is another special episode with guest host Alex Cunningham. Hey, there he is. And this episode, we do, again, top 10 questions. So stuff from alcohol, what my favorite drink is, how to eat liver, the consumption of collagen if you can have too much, what caused you to get food poisoning 4 times in the last year. So I've been a mess. That is true. A bunch of different stuff about eating high carb and high fat, going in and out of ketosis, and the big one at the end, do exogenous ketones and MCT oil stop fat burning? The cliffhanger. So without further ado, I present you my conversation with my co-host, Alex Cunningham.
Before we get to the episode, I wanted to chat about our sponsor, Perfect Keto. Perfect Keto is all about making a ketogenic diet healthy and accessible. Whether you're reading all of our online guides or articles or enjoying Perfect Keto's exogenous ketones or any other keto-friendly products, everything you need to make keto work for you is at perfectketo.com. I know what you're thinking. Hey, aren't you the founder of Perfect Keto? Yep, that's right. And all of my insanely high standards have been put into making each and every product. My background as a functional medicine clinician helps me craft the cleanest and healthiest possible products and best information about a ketogenic diet. Head on over to perfectketo.com to learn anything you need to know about the ketogenic diet. And if you've never tried any of our products before, feel free to use the code KETOPODCAST for 20% off your first order. That being said, let's get into the show.
Hello, hello. This is Q&A episode number 2 with co-host Cunningham.
Round 2, baby. Let's go. I'm walking in with my Conor McGregor dance right now.
Kirk Cousins dance?
Kirk Cousins, Conor McGregor, they all get me fired up.
All right. So we got top 10 questions. Let's rip them. Get to it.
Okay. Let's dive right in. Dave R. Online says, hello, doc. I'm trying to get more organ meats into my diet. Can you share your favorite way to eat or a recipe for liver? Thank you.
Organ meats are great to have from a micronutrient standpoint. I always tell of the tale of the spectrum of micronutrients you can get from food and what foods are best for you. And that always starts with, at the top, for sure, liver and other organ meats. And then way below that, meats. And then below that, we have herbs and spices. And then below that, a lot of plants. So it would make sense to start incorporating a lot more organ meat into your diet. Chris Kresser was just on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about meat consumption versus a vegan diet. Did you listen to this?
No, I just heard your comments on it.
Yeah. 4 hours long, doesn't really come to any conclusions. But one of the good things that he said was that you can basically eat 1 oyster and 4 ounces of liver per day and get all of your micronutrient needs from that.
That's wild.
It's wild. I mean, 4 ounces of liver is kind of a lot, but it just goes to show that how much nutrition is packed into those things. Also, a lot of the nutrients that are in there are stored in your body or used in a slower way. So it's not like you have to eat it every single day. That's an assumption that's all you're going to be eating. So liver is important. So
do we know what the equivalent would be in like vegetables?
No idea. So Jeff Nobbs was just on this show last week. He's building this app called Trish.io that is basically going to help kind of suss out all of this information about nutrients and where they should come from. So I would head over there. I actually saw the beta of it last week and it looks incredible. So go sign up for that if you want to figure out micronutrient deficiencies. Yeah, I mean, this is a question that's like, it's really hard to get to the bottom of, like, okay, what are we eating? What does it really equal? I'm more of a fan of trying to overdo micronutrients than trying to get specific amounts. And so the way you can do that is eat super nutrient dense foods, then try to eat low nutrient dense foods, high calorie foods. And so what I mean by that is organ meats. Like I had a can of smoked oysters last night. Been traveling a lot. And so I did that. I took out a liver from the freezer and then I make tomorrow. And so for a recipe, the way I cook it is I have a Traeger smoker and I just throw it on there. So I slice them pretty thin, like a 1/4 inch. Actually, that's how Jeff Rusk slices them for us. I don't know if you have the livers from him too. So we buy from this ranch up north called Bar 3 Ranch here in Austin. And guy throws me like 4 or 5, 6 packs of liver and it's a couple pounds. And so what I'll do is it's like a fourth of an inch. I'll just season that with salt, pepper, and like paprika or a spice like that that's pretty bitter and pretty powerful. So like you can use paprika or cumin or cayenne or any of these seasonings like that have a little bit of intensity to them and kind of take over the taste of a food. You could also use like turmeric or curry powder, anything like that. And so I season it with that. I just grill it real quick, and then I throw some herbs and butter on it and slice it up real thin. And I think it tastes actually pretty good.
So I've bought some non-organic, non-grass-fed liver before. Is that hurting me?
No. So this is another misconception. Good follow up here that the liver is a quote unquote detox organ. So toxins are stored in liver. It doesn't work that way. It helps process things, but it doesn't store toxins. So your fat actually does that. Your fat stores toxins and other not great things. Not really ideal to have. I mean, just like any other part of the animal, you're going to get way less nutrients and it's not going to be an ideal cut. You're going to be supporting a bunch of bullshit farming that we don't like. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I wouldn't do that. And I think the taste and texture, just like with generalized meat, if you can go pick something up at a general grocery store, it's just going to be really awful quality and awful food. And so it's probably going to taste terrible. The stuff from Jeff, so this is like a super high end grass fed ranch, is basically free, and I think tastes pretty good.
Definitely.
So, I mean, the tips I would say to avoid it tasting awful is get high quality stuff, slice it thin, cook it hot, use butter on it, use some good spices. A lot of people can't take the texture, but I think that it's fine. Just choke it down. It's worth it. It's one of these things. It's like, just do it.
Yeah, I've chopped it up too and put it with some ground beef, and you can't even notice it.
Oh yeah. So this is another trick that I used to do a lot. Going to do it more than now that it's like 40 degrees in Austin. But if you take heart and kidney and liver and stuff and chop it up and put it into chili, you don't get chili, you cannot taste it no matter what. So little cubes like the size of anything else. So I'll do like
little micronutrient bombs.
Yeah, liver, heart, kidney, and then I'll do bison, ground beef, ground pork, and maybe some lamb, and just make this massive meat stew with like fresh farmers market style tomatoes and peppers and all this stuff. It is awesome, and you can't taste any of it. So there's a few different tricks and tips for you.
One more quick thing on my mind is how would you compare getting micronutrients from things like organ meats to getting them from a multivitamin or like a greens powder?
Oh yeah, so good question. Multivitamins suck just because they are fake nutrients. So it's like we synthesize a bunch of stuff in a lab and then put it in there. Your body can't really use the forms. That's why greens powders are better than that. Greens powders are great because they take a lot of what is naturally awesome in a plant, all the stuff that stresses your body in a small scale and makes you adapt to it. So all the phytochemicals and polyphenols and things like that, which are essential to nutrition, which is why I'm not like down on carnivore, but I think that long term it makes sense to still have plants for a certain reason. So we can get into that either this episode or another one. But then, so not necessarily all the nutrients that you need from a human perspective, but a lot of things that you need to propel your body to the next level. So we actually, I don't know if we've launched it yet, but we have now liver capsules with Quip. So Quip Foods, one of the other companies that not part of Perfect Keto. We have grass-fed liver capsules.
Launched into my cabinet, that's for sure.
Launched in your cabinet, launched in my belly.
I'm gonna launch 6 right now.
And then you could, toss them across the room with me, see if I can catch them all.
Yeah, here you go.
A little pocket liver. So yeah, I mean, obviously you're not getting 4 ounces, but if you use it kind of like a multivitamin on a day-over-day basis, that stuff accumulates, and so you actually get more of it. Very few people, even if they eat 4 ounces, like you maybe eat that once a week, once every 2 weeks. And so I think it's a good substitute if you can't stomach it or you just want it in a more convenient way. So that's usually how I buffer if I am traveling a lot or if I don't have time to cook or if I just forget or whatever. So I'll take a liver capsule if they have 4 of them as kind of like a multivitamin that way.
Love it. Let's move on and we can circle back to plants in a little bit. 2 very related questions. SR Marie.
3.
Okay.
Hit him one at a time. Let's just take it slow.
Okay. Let's take it slow. All right. Is keto a possibility for wine lovers and drinkers? This is from SR Marie.
Yes, it's not going to help you in any way. And just as a disclaimer, I drink. I usually take long stretches where I don't. And then it's not like I go crazy on a bender, but I'll just be okay with drinking for a little while. For instance, I did not drink for maybe like a month and a half. And then we went to Thailand on a retreat. I drank there, nothing excessive. Came back, and now I'm going to be off for again, probably another month and a half. So that's how I approach it personally. Is it keto a possibility? Like it's the state of ketosis. Yes, your keto levels will be diminished a little bit. However, it's not going to completely blast you. For wine, A company called Dry Farm Wines does a really great job testing low sugar wines and stuff that doesn't have a lot of preservatives in it. That's what I drink when I drink wine, only their stuff. That is not a paid sponsorship. I don't have any affiliate deal with them. It's just I love their stuff. So that would be for wine lovers. For drinkers, I mean, just be smart about it. We'll get to this in a second, but don't drink soda with like pretty much any drink. If you order like a cocktail menu, and you go to a fancy restaurant or a nice bar or whatever, they'll have all these crazy cocktails. Every single one of them will be sweetened with something, whether that's fruit juice or syrups or whatever. So if you're going to drink, like have a Dry Farm wine basically, or don't drink wine, because if you're out at a restaurant, probably going to be high in sugar. And then after that, then you're going to have basically it mixed with a bunch of bullshit. So skip that.
So I've heard that, say if you opt for just straight like clear liquor or just hard liquor in general, it'll still kind of diminish your ketone levels a little bit, even though there's not a huge amount of sugar, because it's kind of occupying your liver with processing the toxin rather than creating ketones.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not going to completely obliterate your ketone levels, but your liver will. So a lot of times your liver is pretty much in charge of breaking down fats and turning them into ketones. It's a little more complicated than that, but just to simplify it, that is mainly what we want to look at. And so if your liver's busy basically processing a poison that if you don't clear, you'll die, then it makes sense that would basically shut down your ketone production for the time being. But it's not like if you were to drink a soda or like have a glass of wine that has a bunch of sugar in it, that's going to completely kick you out of ketosis from a metabolic standpoint, but not from I can't make ketones at this second standpoint. So good point. And so I would say, like, if you want to opt for drinking, say Dry Farm wines, if you want to have wine, and then on top of that, vodka soda, tequila soda, something like that, or just something straight. So next step is kind of related to that.
Yes, it is. This is from SYL Christensen HX. She asks, if you could only have one kind of alcoholic beverage for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
So you surprisingly failed me last episode when it was the one cut of meat I could have for the rest of my life.
No, it was one food, so there was a whole lot of options to think about.
Same thing. You should have known. I was disappointed.
It took me like 18 seconds.
Will you be able to nail this one?
Absolutely. 100,000% nail in the coffin. Drum roll, please.
Let's hear it.
Mezcal.
Yep, nailed it.
Why?
We'll go over that in a second. So this also goes with the next question. If you want to read that off, it's kind of the same thing. So
favorite cocktail is straight mezcal. Is that considered a cocktail? What's the criteria for
Relative Universe asked that. So mezcal is my drink of choice. It's the one that if I could only drink one thing for the rest of my life. So mezcal, and why? Step one is that I've actually tested my ketone levels before and after drinking. It's the thing that diminishes mine the least. I cannot get hungover or feel like shit no matter how much I drink of mezcal. Like I could drink a bottle and feel fine the next day. It's crazy.
Have you done that?
Maybe not an entire bottle, but there's been times where I've drank an excessive amount. It feels completely fine the next day. So weird. I don't know. Mezcal is very high quality. So the Mexican government regulates all the bottles. It's a very small batch process. There's not a lot of large companies that make mezcal, and so I usually opt for ones that are very high quality, pretty expensive, but for me worth it. If I'm gonna, I think about like drinking kind of like how I think about food in general. It's like there was a time where I was just like I would eat bread and cake and all this other crap. Just kind of like I knew it wasn't good, but I was still gonna eat it. But now it's like I only eat stuff like that when I'm in Paris and I have a croissant or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I have the best of something to have that experience. That's when I opt for it. And so drinking, I think, is kind of the same way. Where if I'm gonna be in France and I want to drink wine, I'm gonna drink wine there. If I want to drink, I would only pretty much opt for the things that are truly exceptional. And so I think that mezcal is that way. There's 40 plus different agaves, and so tequila is blue agave, just for that, and then everything else is done is mezcal. And so there is a bunch of different varieties of agave, and so each one of them done differently tastes differently. And so you can have each one be different, but you can also have them processed differently. So you can have some that are charred and some that are in a steel vat and some are fermented in this way or that way. So super interesting. It's kind of this really fun thing to explore and get a bunch of these different ones and try them side by side. So it's just kind of a fun thing for me to do. So that's the one I would choose.
Yeah, and I love your outlook on drinking, that it's kind of analogous to unhealthy eating, where we feel kind of pressured to just go with whatever, grandma's serving up or everyone else is ordering, but you really don't have to. And the moment that you kind of, maybe opt for not, drinking an alcoholic beverage, or maybe you opt for certain something that's more keto friendly, you're probably going to be inspiring someone that's in the room that, it's okay to choose that option. It's okay to do it just like to have an amazing experience versus just doing it socially.
Yeah. And again, to be clear, alcohol does nothing for you. It is absolutely 100% a bad choice. So it is an unhealthy
Literally
choice.
a toxin.
Yeah. Like it's this bullshit that, oh, well, if you drink a glass of wine, it reduces heart disease. Like, no. Every drop of alcohol is quantifiably bad for you. So I'm not promoting it. And like, I understand that when I have it. So yeah, it's not like it's a crazy part of my life, but gotta be true about stuff. We're real human.
Real talk.
Real talk
On the Keto Answers podcast.
Do it up next.
Next up is from Christy Jokala, and that rings a bell. Don't know why.
Yeah,
certainly rings a bell.
She asked, affiliate, I think.
She's crushing it. Dear Dr. Gustin, can you take too much collagen? If so, what would you notice? Love the question.
I don't think so.
You were taking some massive doses when you broke your ankle.
Good point. So yeah, good question. I don't know why that would be the case. I was taking like 8 scoops a day of our collagen. So messed up my foot really bad a couple months ago. I was taking like 8 scoops of that and a bunch of other stuff, turmeric and liver caps and eating liver and getting all this good stuff in me. And yeah, nothing happened. I think that I would not exclusively have collagen protein as my only protein source, but that would be really, really hard to do. But I wouldn't like not eat meat.
Why is that?
We'll get to that. I would not eat meat and only have collagen or whatever sources I get from plants. And because collagen is just very few different types of amino acids. So think about protein as a bunch of building blocks, Legos, and your body in different parts is made up of different Legos. And so collagen, why it's so good and why I think people should take it on a regular basis and why I do is because it's really hard now with the way we eat to get collagen in a true form. And so what we eat now is generally we take out an animal, we eat only the muscle meat, which is great for us and our muscle meat. But as all the stuff we throw away of the animal, we also have those parts too. So we have connective tissue, we have skin, we have hair, we have nails, we have joint surfaces, we have intestines, we have blood vessels. All these things are made up more of collagen. Okay. But if you only ate that, then you would be eschewing all of the building blocks for our lean tissue. And so that's why you need a good balance of each of these things. And so I wouldn't exclusively eat it, but I think if you're eating proper amount of animal protein and like, yes, you can get some of the building blocks complementary in vegetables and things like that and plant matter. But I mean, the easiest way, come on, you're an animal, eat an animal. That's the way it is. And so, I would say balance it out. But overall, like I don't see any reason why eating 10 grams or 100 grams would be worse. I think that going to that end, the thing that would be bad would just be your bank account would be less.
So my understanding is that like, when you eat collagen, it gets broken down into the constituent Lego blocks, the amino acids, and then having those will promote the synthesis of collagen within your body.
Yep.
Okay. But there's some amino acids missing from collagen that would be used for lean muscle?
Yeah, and vice versa.
Okay. Anything that, like what if you did collagen and whey, would that, cover all the amino acids?
Whey is decent, but I mean, at that point still there's very derivative products. It's like, I would opt for more complete sources whenever you can get that. And so if you can get instead of a cheese leftover, I would opt for like the way collagen is made is it takes all those parts that we talked about, boils it down, makes a sludge, and then we spray dry it. Whereas whey is really, really good for promoting certain muscle synthesis, but it's not like, I think you still need like real food to complement it.
So say I'm doing a carnivore diet. Am I going to be getting all the amino acids, all the essential amino acids?
Totally.
Okay. Moving on. This is from Whole Food Chronicles. He or she asks, What caused you to get food poisoning 4 times in the last year?
Brutal. It's been brutal. I think you've witnessed some of them.
It's funny because like we try to be super healthy and then things like this come up and it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Trying to be healthy.
So the first occurrence, I was in Portugal and I ate a goddamn mackerels, raw mackerel. I thought it was good. And it was just like, I was delirious. I was wrecked. I couldn't.
I remember you texting me.
Yeah. I had like this neurological, like at the time, I thought I was going to die for sure. I had like pins and needles throughout my entire body. I had a complete confusion. And it took me like, I couldn't walk for longer than like 100 steps for like 2 weeks. It was brutal.
You lost a lot of weight, huh?
Lost a lot of weight. Worst sickness I probably had in my life. And
death by mackerel.
Yeah. So this is what happens. So when you have something this bad, your gut microbiome gets wiped out so hard. And that like, it's not like you just take some probiotics and you're good the next day. Like to restore gut health takes a very, very long time. In like year, 2 year, 3 years.
Whoa.
Very long time. And the question is too, like, is your gut ever really the same? So if I were to bust my ankle real bad a couple months ago, will it ever move the same? I don't know. Maybe. Like, will it have the same overall function? Yeah, probably. Will it have the same exact range of motion? Probably not. If my leg, instead of getting just completely crossed up in basketball and ripping it up, let's say it got crushed by a semi truck, would that leg ever be the same again? It's like, well, probably much less so.
Got crossed up by a semi truck.
Probably much less so. So like injuries like people can relate to this sense that like injuries in a physical sense can lead to damages that like you can't really recover much from them, if at all. The same thing can happen in internal processes. So like gut health is one of these things. So when people have tons of rounds of antibiotics when they're younger, plus tons of food sickness or food poisoning, all this different stuff, over the course of time, you have so much cumulative damage that you actually might not be able to restore your gut to a certain point. This is why I think things like a carnivore diet, people are finding so much success with it. It's because some people may have such fucked up guts that they don't realize it. And like they probably won't be able to really restore them ever back to 100%. Can you change it a little bit? Can it get better? Yeah, of course. I'm not saying that every gut problem leads to this. But what happened with me is I had this complete wipeout and complete destruction of my gut. Then as that's the case, my defenses aren't 100%. Then I go eat something else like an idiot. So I ate like oysters or something like that 4 months later.
One oyster a day.
Got it again. That's why I eat the smoked ones now. Safe. And then that wipes everything out. And then it happens again and again and again. And so you're so much more susceptible every time that happens until your gut's like completely restored, if it can ever be restored like that again.
So how do you know that your gut is improving?
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you can tell from symptoms like this is the thing too. Like I don't really ever have gut symptoms. So like I don't have like diarrhea or constipation or bloating or anything like that when I have any gut problems. You can test for certain stuff. So there's certain stool tests you can do, but it's not really a clear picture. You can do SIBO tests to see if there's different types of bacteria in there. And so you can do that to quantify some of it, but a lot of it, like we can't really test for it. It's so complicated. And so even if we get, like we can see pathogenic bacteria, but do we really know what's ideal for you and your situation, what foods you're eating and the lifestyle you're living? No, we have no idea. And so this is why like I get so pissed off too about people who, oh, we shouldn't eat a carnivore diet because it decreases fiber and that decreases certain things. Like we don't know if that's good or bad. We don't know anything about it. And we can't make those conclusions. And so we know what parasites look like. We know what dysbiotic bacteria looks like. We know what increased growth of bacteria looks like, but we don't know the distributions and the type of species that should be in somebody. We don't know how they get affected. We don't know what's ideal for anything. And so that's the thing too, is like, we don't really know if it's at full capacity or not. Like what might be ideal for me is completely destructive for somebody living in the Amazon. And so this is something too, like your lifestyle, your stress levels, the food you eat, the things you do, how you work out, all this stuff can change your microbiome. And your need for a microbiome will be very different for those things. And so, yeah, it's really complicated. We just don't have any real answers for this yet. Hopefully someday we will have a clearer picture. But yeah, generally, if somebody says something definitively about gut health, man, it's not much you can trust.
So do you feel concerned, eating certain foods now?
No, man. I'll get back to it. We'll get there.
All right.
It's been a good maybe 6 months, 8 months since last time. I was in San Francisco. I was like, yeah, maybe January.
Quick question. I just took antibiotics a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, man. I was looking at you. I was like, dude.
I was already like, I had already taken them, and then I got the stare down. Like, what are you doing? And so I was
the
like,
muscle milk stare down.
I can't like selectively throw up this antibiotic.
Well, you could stop taking them.
Yeah, I could have, but So now I realize that probably destroyed my.
Yeah. You're done, man.
I'm toast. And no mackerel for
your gut just got crushed by a semi.
So, is there anything I can do for a week or so to help myself out?
Dude, I'm telling you, this is not a week process. This is like a year or 2 year thing. Like, I don't know how bad. Like, what antibiotics were they?
Amoxicillin.
Yeah, I mean, not the worst, but not great. I would say for sure take a broad amount of probiotics. And so, listen to the episode I did with Michael Ruscio if you haven't already. He talks about 3 different types of probiotics. I would take all of them, or take one at a time, see if you react negatively to any of them, which could be the case, and then just jack up the doses on them. I would do like Prescript Assist and VSL number 3, and then a generalized lactobacillus blend, something like that, or for sure Saccharomyces boulardii. You're going to kind of double up with VSL number 3 and the lactobacillus combo, but Saccharomyces boulardii is something that has helped me a lot in the past. But again, this is so individual that I'm not going to. I have no idea. I would eat a lot of collagen, stuff like that. Glutamine can be really good at restoring gut lining. I don't know if that happened. Like, this is the thing too. It's like, did you have a super strong gut before? Then it's not going to matter as much. Was your gut already compromised? Well, then, like, so for instance, like with your gut lining, you have basically this huge amount, these big layers of mucosa, which is essentially what you want. All this bacteria interacting with each other, creating certain compounds that create this protective barrier on your gut. They do a lot of other things, but this protective barrier is super important. When that gets worn down, you have gaps that can basically touch your gut lining, then your gut lining starts being eroded. And so then you look at stuff like glutamine and different gut healing protocols, because your gut like literally becomes leaky at that point and more stuff gets in your bloodstream than not. If your gut mucosa lining was super strong and it didn't wipe all that stuff out, well, then you're probably fine. But what could have happened is it could have then wiped it clean. So now your gut lining is essentially exposed. Again, this is a very, very simplistic way to look at this. The gut is way more complex, but just to relate things to people who don't understand this stuff, it's a good way to look at it. And so if that's the case, yeah, I mean, a lot of bone broth. Kettle and Fire is the brand that I choose. I don't know if you also use their stuff.
Big fan.
Obviously, we have a collagen product that I would highly recommend. That type of stuff, fermented foods, and so like pound sauerkraut, kimchi, things like that.
I can do that.
And then also the probiotics I recommended. And I think that just decreasing stress, hard workouts actually really are not great for your microbiome. So, I mean, that's something that has been shown a couple of different times, but I'm not as concerned about that one if you have everything else in check.
Stress is a super interesting point because, your gut is so sensitive. I'm sure it's probably one of the most sensitive things to, stress signals.
Get that new Sam Harris app. Did you get it?
I did. Day 4.
So good.
Oh my gosh.
So killer. So again,
buttery.
Not paid for that, but I'm on day like 15 or 16 and I've learned more. I've done meditation for like 3 or 4 years. I've learned more useful things about meditation in those 15, 16 days than I think the other 3 years combined.
Anything particular standing out to you?
I'll let you, this is a cliffhanger. I'll let you see. I'm going to give away the ending.
Okay. Next up, Marivelle asked a great question. Is it bad for you to keep going in and out of ketosis? Does it mess up your metabolism?
No, it does not mess up your metabolism. Is it bad? Yes or no? Is it an answer? I think that totally depends on your goals. And so if you are somebody who and where you at in your keto journey. So if you are, let's say, week 1 and you're going this carb cycling pathway thing and you've never been in ketosis in your life, it's not great. It's going to, every time that you try to go back in and out is going to be just a disaster. And so I would say when you first go into ketosis and you've never done it before, just do like 2 months, please.
As long as you can.
Yeah, just do it, please. Because what happens is you have to change over so much of your actual cellular machinery to use ketones and burn them as fuel and to be able to generate a little bit of this metabolic flexibility. So this totally depends too on your metabolic history. So if you're a 58-year-old woman who has diabetes, you should probably be doing it a little bit longer than even that. Versus if you're an 18-year-old athletic male. Like you're going to be able to have and tap into these stores very easily. And so if you're starting to get going, especially if it's to treat anything or if it is to switch over your metabolism for the first time, just stick it out, do it. And then at that point, like I would say I go in and out of ketosis pretty often.
Yep.
Yeah. And not a problem. And now I can get back into ketosis in 1 to 2 days, not an issue. And I feel totally fine and nothing's wrong and it does not mess up your metabolism.
Not painful at all.
Yeah. It's just something that like you have to change over this machinery and then feel free to go back and forth all you want. Also, I like, this is one of these things, like, I don't think that any type of nutrition is good long-term or ideal long-term unless it's goal dependent. For example, if you have brain cancer, like probably stay in ketosis as much as possible. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's ideal. So that would be not great. But if you're just a normal person with wanting to have normal health, then yeah, have some variance. You know, go sometimes where you fast, go sometimes where you eat high carb, go sometimes where you eat only meat, go sometimes where you eat only vegetables, switch it up. Like, I'm not super crazy about this stuff where like you do one thing forever. There's so much we don't know about nutrition that I think that like you're gonna be able to cover your bases if you switch it around a lot and do what works for you. And so was it bad to keep going in on ketosis? If it doesn't help you reach your goal, then yes. If it does and it's fine, then no.
I think make an important point that, you know, when you come in at the beginning and you're trying to like switch over to becoming fat adapted, then yes, it is good to stay in ketosis. And I feel like folks come in and they want to be told that almost like it's beneficial to cheat somehow, or they always have their eyes on how am I going to cheat in a appropriate manner. And I just tell them, like, just fall in love with eating real food and fall in love with keto and just go for it full bore and, you know, look up a couple months from now.
Good advice. Next up.
Myers CA asks, what are the consequences of eating a moderate to high carbohydrate diet in conjunction with high fat?
I would not recommend this one, especially saturated fat. I've just seen a lot of research that shows, and this is again a very complicated subject that I'll try to break down pretty simply, but carbohydrates, like this all depends too on like what type of carbs, what type of fat. Is it like, are you talking about like Twinkies? Are you talking about French fries? Which is like
sweet potatoes and steaks?
Yeah, sweet potatoes and steak? Or are you talking about like Skittles and like Crisco?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Little Marshawn Lynch right there.
Yeah, like two very different things. And so obviously the more you're on a whole food spectrum, the safer you're going to be here. But I still, when I eat carbohydrates, I try to eat like moderate to high protein, moderate carbohydrates, low fat. Or I switch that and go moderate to high protein, moderate fat, low carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And why? One, I feel better. Two, what can happen is that carbohydrates for me especially can create a little inflammation just because my metabolic history, I was super overweight when I was younger. I don't handle carbohydrates well. Again, maybe I had some damage that I have not been able to recover from. That's just what it is. And that's how the body reacts to things. Totally fine, totally normal. So I personally don't feel great, but there also is a lot of mechanisms to this. Again, we're not sure exactly how this turns out on an individual basis, but what happens is if you eat just saturated fat, it can be totally fine, especially when you're on keto and you can use that stuff. But when you eat it in conjunction with carbohydrate, again, very simplistic view of how it works, and you have this gut problem where you have stuff that gets in that shouldn't be, what basically happens is the fat and carbohydrate can make these things called lipopolysaccharides, and the carbohydrate basically makes like a little boat that the fat sits in that can carry it into bloodstream in a way that shouldn't be there. And so then the boat basically goes around attacking things and creating inflammation, and then the fat is around to basically react with that in a very negative way. So this is not what we want, obviously. There's a lot of complexity that happens in this way. So again, I would say if you want to eat real food, whole food stuff, and you're generally a healthy person, totally fine. Like probably something that you should not worry about. If you're eating Skittles and Crisco and you're all messed up and you feel like shit, just don't do it. Like just eat carbohydrates only, then eat fat only.
So my understanding is that, like, say if I eat carbohydrates, even like, you know, we'll say solid carbohydrates, sweet potatoes, as well as saturated fat at the same time, it's pretty much synergistically bad because I will be creating an insulin spike for myself at the same time where there's a lot of lipids in my bloodstream. So it'll be telling my body to store fat and giving my body fat.
Yeah,
the
I mean
same time as that.
that's a problem with it as well. We'll get to this a second, but like, yeah, it's if your goal is to lose fat or stay trim, probably also not a great idea to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, fat burning, fat loss, fat storage is an extremely complicated thing that is not easily said by just saying like, I mean, as much as I want it to be, it's not as simple as insulin's high, storing fat, insulin's low, burning fat. A lot more things going on than that.
Gotcha.
So, but yes, generally speaking, if you eat a lot of carbs and a lot of fat, then you're probably going to gain more fat.
When you have some carbs, do you typically stay away from fat at that time?
Not 100% of the time, but it's not like I won't eat the same amount of fat. And so, like, for instance, if I do have a sweet potato and a steak, I'll probably still put some butter on the sweet potato because it tastes really good. But if that steak's a ribeye, I'll trim off the fat and not eat that. But if it were not, I would eat all the ribeye and all the fat. Good question.
Makes sense.
But it's like it's not like I never count macros. I think it's ridiculous. I don't need to do it for whatever my goals are. I just think that it's kind of irrelevant most of the time anyway. So it's not like I'm eating 100 grams of carbohydrates and 0 grams of fat or whatever. It's like I just generally avoid most fats if I eat carbohydrates and generally avoid most carbohydrates if I eat fat. It's really simple.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's 5 grams or 15 grams or 100 grams or whatever. Like I use my eyes to figure that out, not a scale.
So you don't count macros, but you might want to count your macro rolls. Sorry, that was a stretch. Okay. Moving right along. Riggs Magic asks, can I still do keto and bulk up in the gym? Great question, Riggs Magic. I am all ears right now.
Quite certainly.
Nothing more?
It's one of those things where like we've covered this a bunch in the podcast in the last I don't know, 12 episodes. And I think the podcast with Luis Villasenor is the best one about this.
Top 5 favorite keto answers.
Look at that guy and tell me you can't bulk up while on keto. He's been keto for like 15 years.
He's shredded like a julienne salad.
Yeah. So you can for sure. It's just like, again, very complicated metabolic processes, but generally speaking, you just make sure that your protein's at a good level and that you're training hard. This is the thing that people like ask yourself, like, are you training right? Are you recovering appropriately? Are you giving yourself enough raw materials to build that muscle? You don't need carbs to build muscle in general. Does it help you store energy? Generally, yeah, but do you need it to build muscle? No. So yeah, that's my answer to that one. So we have a lot of information on that stuff already. Go for it. You can do it. Make sure your protein's high and quit being afraid of protein. If you're concerned about that, I have a video about protein gluconeogenesis. It's not true. I was eating 200 plus grams of protein a day with a carnivore diet and totally fine with my ketone levels. So I just blast that meth out of the water. So yeah, protein is not something you should be worried about in a ketogenic diet.
I think it just takes some tinkering too. Like you gotta, play with your electrolytes, try different things pre-workout and just let it rip.
Rip it.
All right. Last question. This is from Slam Chops 1. Love the Instagram handle Slam Chops.
Second question in as many episodes.
Boy, he must be asking some
killers,
some provokers. So this one is: do exogenous ketones or MCTs stop fat burning? I think this is really important. I see it floating around quite a bit and it's gaining some traction. It's turning into some bro science, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are.
Let's break it down one by one. Exogenous ketones, no.
Thank goodness.
So this is something where just be realistic about this whole thing. Look at how much you're putting into a cup when you mix it up. Maybe 10 grams, 14 grams. The people say like you're burning fat, and if you have exogenous ketones, then you're never burning fat again.
Door shut.
Game
over.
Which is follow that logic down the rabbit hole for me. Okay. If you have 14 grams of exogenous ketones, you don't burn fat anymore. And then how long does that happen for? Some people say like a day till you get back into normal ketosis.
Yeah, until you have slept and are in a fasted state.
Okay. Let's just we'll break down what the actual nutrient is in a second, but let's just think about what that means for fat burning. That means that if we have anything that we're processing in our body, that we are not able to burn fat. That means that if anybody was eating food ever, they would not be able to burn fat. Do you know anybody that's lost fat who has done it in a way where they've eaten food?
I was gonna say, like, if this is the case, then I would be the fattest person on the planet because I'm constantly eating ketones.
Right.
But sorry, no, I have not seen that.
Well, not only that, but this logic would follow that you can only burn fat when you're fasting. And I know a lot of people who have lost a lot of weight while eating a lot of food and eating food frequently.
Yep.
And so this, just by that logic, it's wrong. It's not accurate.
I think people have the image in their head that there's like, you eat food and then there's these molecules that are waiting to jump into a fire pit. And then only once that line of molecules is gone, then can you start burning your own body fat.
Yeah. Again, fat loss and fat storage is extremely complicated. It does not work in a way this simple. It doesn't work in a way as simple as calories in, calories out. You have these things called hormones. There's so many things to think about here. And so the quick answer to this for the ketone stuff is absolutely not. And I think that, okay, if not, then are they beneficial for burning fat? Okay, so good question, right? They are not a magic pill, whereas if you consume them, you're immediately going to start dropping fat in pounds. But the associated benefits with them may lead you to losing more fat. Okay, so what does this mean? This means more energy, right? When I take ketones like I did before this episode, I'm ready to go, man.
You're rocking it.
And so if that's the case, maybe you're more active, maybe more physically active. Maybe you want to make better choices. Maybe you create momentum because of your high energy that leads you down to a path where you do more active things and you make better food choices. Okay? That could be one possible way. 2, appetite suppression. Like, I don't want to eat when I have ketones. So if you generally have a hard time with appetite, this could be a really, really great tool to get that appetite and cravings under control. I don't have that anymore. Like I used to really, really bad. 10 years ago or so, like I had appetite like crazy, especially when I was eating carbohydrates a lot and really crappy food. My body was just confused about what it needed for fuel. And so the ketones can come in and provide you with metabolic energy. Your body's like, okay, we're good. We don't need a lot of crap right now. So if you have cravings or appetite that are just, it's normal. If you're switching to a ketogenic diet and you've eaten pretty crappy food before, don't blame yourself for having these appetite issues. Totally normal. And this type of stuff can help regulate that. So if you turn off the switch in your brain that goes, I need to eat everything right now all the time, and you can fly through your day and having some relief from that, I would say that will help you to lose fat. Will the ketones themselves be the ones that make that, like, force fat to be burned in the cell? No, it doesn't. Also, we have a mechanism where if you're adapting to a ketogenic diet, your body, like I said before, you have cellular machinery that needs to switch over so you can burn fat for fuel efficiently. Can you still lose fat if you're not keto adapted? Yes. Is it easier if you are keto adapted? Probably for most people. And so if you have ketones, it actually helps tell your body, like, hey, we have this stuff available. Switch over your cellular machinery and use these things more readily, which will then tell your body that it's okay to start burning its own fat. So that's, again, another way that it can actually help. Yes, okay. So ketones, I would say, absolutely not. Okay, going into MCT, and like you can't overconsume ketones. This is the thing. MCTs, I think we have a problem with people they overconsume them. Mm-hmm. That can stop fat burning. It's a very calorically dense molecule, whereas ketones are not. You have 14 grams of ketones, not a big deal. You have 28 grams, you may feel a little dicey. You have 42 grams of ketones.
Macro status. Yeah,
macro status, baby. Like your gut will be hurting. It's a very self-limiting molecule. So like you can't have a caloric excess. Okay, note again before. I said before, calories in versus calories out is not the definitive thing of how you lose weight or how you gain weight, but it does matter. The amount of food you eat does matter to a certain degree. So you cannot overeat. You cannot overconsume ketones. Like there's a debate on whether like ketones are even calorically relevant or not because of the pathways they take. So let's just say they are, and let's just say they are counted as a fat molecule, which they shouldn't be. And so let's say that 14 grams is 9 calories per gram and you're getting, what is that, 125 calories. Like that's not going to really make that big of a difference on a day-to-day basis, especially if it helps with all those other things we talked about. MCT oil, though, we have a little bit of a different story. So if you're eating MCT oil and you put 7 tablespoons in your bulletproof coffee in the morning, and you're really, really jamming fat down your throat that way, like you can tolerate that, especially when you really, really take a lot of it, well, then you could be overeating in a very excessive amount. And like, while again, I think that MCT has a lot of the same benefits that I said about ketones earlier, you can certainly overconsume it. Certainly. And so will that stop fat burning? Yes. Does an MCT, as far as consuming it, stop fat burning? No. And this is the thing too, like if you have 1 to 2 tablespoons, if you have like a scoop of MCT oil powder, no, it's not going to stop fat burning. It'll probably help dramatically. If you have 12 scoops of MCT powder and half a bottle of MCT oil a day, probably you're going to have some problems. And so again, calories in, calories out does not matter exclusively. And it's not the only thing you should look at. Think about it. I think I use this analogy. So I wrote an article about this for Exogenous Ketones. We'll link into the show notes, but you have, think about it kind of like a car where you can certainly overfill the tank with fuel. And when you do that, you get fat. Again, very complicated process. It's kind of a very simple way to look at it. You cannot overfill the tank with exogenous ketones. You can use MCT oil to overfill that tank pretty easily.
Interesting.
And so that's the problem. While again, to pull it back to why that's not exclusively important, go drive that car now. Okay, drive it like an asshole with like just like zooming all over the place and like accelerating and braking, accelerating and braking. You're going to get a certain miles per gallon out of that gas tank versus if you drive it like a normal human being. So that's what I mean by like calories in, calories out is important and it does matter, but it's not the only thing that matters. And so we also need to know, okay, what is the efficiency of this motor right now? What is the efficiency of this car? Is it missing the 2 back tires? I don't think you're going to be getting very good fuel efficiency out of that. So it doesn't matter. And you can overfill a tank with MCT oil, but in a normal amount, it's not going to be a problem.
So you're saying it's the amount of, fuel in your car, and then, the quality is going to determine how that
quality is certainly part of it. Hormones are part of it. There's a lot of different things that influence the efficiency of that vehicle, your body. And so I think that it's not that simple. So to recap, exogenous ketones, no, you're not going to stop fat burning if you had them. You're probably going to help it with a lot of indirect measures. MCT oil, no, if you're consuming a normal amount. But I think that people have fat loss problems. They shouldn't eliminate MCT oil entirely, but they should just watch to make sure the consumption isn't through the roof. And so Chris Irving and I talk about this a few episodes back about busting through fat loss plateaus. And we recommend, especially if you're keto adapted, to start pulling back on fat a little bit and doing a little bit higher protein and probably seeing a lot of good results based upon fat loss for that reason.
Gotcha. That's super helpful for me to hear. I knew kind of from my own experience that like, no, surely these don't stop fat burning.
He knew it.
But I didn't know why or how.
Yeah, this is one of these things too. Like I get messages every single day. Hey, thanks for all the stuff you do. Here's what happened to me. I tried keto and I lost, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds. And most of these people use exogenous ketones and MCT oil. If it stopped fat burning just like that, like a switch you turn off, these people would not have lost this weight. Like how many people do you know that have used these products who have lost weight?
Countless.
Yeah, countless. Like that logic is just so simple and so stupid to me. So that's the answer. Show that's 10 questions.
It's frustrating because it's tough to really break down that myth. You know what I mean? It's because it's the way the question is phrased. You can't just simply answer it. There's all the scenarios you have to break it down and what are you using these ketones and MCTs? What are you replacing? What are you avoiding by using them? That type of thing.
Yep. So a little bit, it's a complicated question. Answers no and maybe. But yeah, it's a good question, Slam Chops one.
Thanks. I'll keep them coming. And Dr. Gustin, anytime you need questions or general confusion or uncertainty about health and keto, my door is always open.
Appreciate you. So that's it. 10 questions down. Episode number 2. Hope you liked it. If you have any more questions, please just reach out to me on Instagram. I usually answer every single one of them. If not, they'll be in the show. So just at Dr. Anthony Gustin. You want to give Alex some love? He's at SlamChops1. Show it up. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Keto Answers podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. But even if you didn't, I would love a review. Just go over to iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast, and pop in a review so we can get found by more people, get better guests, have the information that you need. So please go to iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast, and leave us a review. And if you're new to keto, head on over to perfectketo.com/podcast and enter your email for all our top tips and guides on getting started with the ketogenic diet. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.